Hey guys, it's your average middle-aged American back again with another reaction video. This one is from Nathaniel Drew. It's titled, "Why Do Europeans Dislike Americans So Much?" Now, I'll be upfront with you. There's no way I'm getting through this video without being somewhat defensive. I'm going to defend America if I have to defend America. If I, honestly believe that they have a point, I'll tell you that too. But you're going to get an American point of view on a European point of view. If that makes any sense. Hey guys, if you don't mind, I'd appreciate a thumbs up on this video. Helps me with the algorithm, and enough jibber jabber. Let's get this thing started.
I'm asking questions about how Europeans see Americans.
I think it's a third world country with a lot of money. Very negative.
Very negative.
Yeah, I don't see anything.
So clearly she doesn't understand what a third world country is. It's okay. We'll go with it. I took my blood pressure pill. It'll be all right.
Positive about America.
I think they're a bit stupid. American TikTokers, they earn too much money with what they do. Like in Belgium, we have to work for our money and they just make videos and that's it.
Oh my God.
So what part of America... I'm not going to make it through this video without being a jerk. I can tell already. I'm going to try. I'm going to try. So in Belgium, apparently you can't make money working online. I guess they must have some kind of law against that or something. So you're mad at America because people in America can start their own companies and produce a product that people consume and they can make money doing it. I guess you can't do that in Belgium. I guess you can't start a YouTube channel in Belgium or a TikTok channel, or I'm not a fan of TikTok. I'm not on TikTok. I don't even have it on my phone. To each their own. If somebody's making $1 million a month on TikTok, more power to them. Hopefully they're not working for the Chinese government, but regardless, more power to them. Why all the hate? You hate Americans because they can make money doing something that they enjoy. And they say that Americans are the conceited ones.
You know, I might be complete.
Oh, and as far as being stupid, yeah, we're so stupid that the richest people in the world send their children to America to go to college. That's how stupid we are. We're so stupid, we have companies like Apple, IBM, Microsoft, Tesla. Yeah, we're really stupid. Google, YouTube. I mean, what are we doing here? Do you know how stupid you look saying that Americans are stupid? Are there stupid Americans? Of course. Just like every other country in the world, we have stupid people and we have geniuses. And there's a whole bunch in between. You just look stupid generalizing a country with 340 million people in it that have more billionaires and more millionaires than any other country in the world. You have the founders and the leaders and the inventors of some of the biggest, most important companies the world has ever seen, but we're stupid.
Completely wrong about this, but I think it was a little bit cooler to be American when I was a kid.
Hi guys! Hi guys!
I've lived in Europe for several years now, and look, I've romanticized this continent quite a bit. I really like living here. But there's a funny feeling that I cannot shake, and I think it has to do with how Europeans view Americans, or how Europeans view me when they discover that I'm American. And it's not entirely positive. This feeling has not gone away even though I've been here for a few years now. And it's not...
Think about how obscure that is. They didn't have a problem with him until they found out he was American. Now he's different. How disgusting is that? That they're okay with this guy. They're okay with him, his personality, who he is, his disposition, until they find out he's American. And then he's not quite as good as they thought he was. That's disgusting. I mean, that's just disgusting. You don't get treated like that in America. Europeans come to America, we don't look down on you. And before you say something stupid like we shouldn't because you're superior, go check some stats. We don't look down on every country that we beat in some statistic. We control a quarter of the world's economy. That doesn't give me the right to put down people in Switzerland or Germany or wherever. So why is it that you have the right to do that to us? Because you see some stupid reality show that's half fake in the first place about some stupid family that is a micro of portion of 1% of America, or because your friend went to New York City once and had a bad experience with a city that represents 1 or 2% of the entire population of our country. Americans aren't the stupid ones. The stupid ones are the people that judge other people without knowing themselves what's going on, without having the experience themselves. Until you've lived in 10 or 15 different states, you have no idea what the United States is about. You have no idea what it's like. Alaska is completely different than Texas. California is completely different than Florida. New York is completely different than Nebraska. You don't know what it's like here. You don't know what Americans are like here. Unless you've spent time living here and working with them and experiencing multiple states, multiple cities of different sizes, you have no idea. There are people in this country that have never even left the state they live in. They have nothing in common with Los Angeles or New York City or Miami. You don't know Americans until you spend a lot of time with a lot of different ones from a lot of different places.
Hatred. It's more like negative undertones, offhand comments or jokes that are made, and it makes me feel not very cool. And by the way, I recognize not all
it's called
Europeans
bullying,
dislike
dude.
Americans. That is a massive generalization. But I'm bringing this up because it's been enough of a trend for me to confidently talk about this as something that's really happening in the world. I don't think it's just in my head. It just seems like when it comes to Europeans' view of Americans, there's a lot to dislike. I don't necessarily entirely disagree. I have plenty of my own criticisms about the United States and the way of life over there. And I think that all places, all societies merit criticism. That's how we get better. So this applies to everyone. But there's something deeper going on here that I want to explore. On a personal level, my own identity as an American, but also the identity of Americans on the global stage. We don't live in a bubble, and it turns out the whole world has opinions about us. Now, I have my own theories about what's going on here, but I thought I'd get to the root of the matter and ask Europeans themselves.
It makes me a little bit nervous talking to strangers, but
Why?
I'm just gonna go for it.
What are the stereotypes?
That's a good question.
Bah moi, quand je pense aux Américains, je pense à la bouffe et tout.
Dans quel sens? Le fast-food?
Ouais.
Ok.
Les McDo. Ouais.
McDo. Ouais, ok.
Hamburger et
That's funny because when I think of the French, I think of their food. You know, I think of the outdoor cafe and, you know, kind of the higher quality, you know, the gourmet type atmosphere, the wine, the cheese, obviously the Eiffel Tower. But that's the first thing I think of when I think of the French is their food and their lifestyle. So it's not necessarily a negative. Of course, fast food is kind of a negative for them, but whatever. It's true. We're a capitalist country. And I got news for you. There'll be a McDonald's right next to the Eiffel Tower soon if there isn't one there already.
tout.
Mais les Français adorent McDo.
Oui, bah, on y était il y a 2 minutes.
Donc c'est pas forcément négatif ça.
Non, non.
Ok.
Mais c'est l'image.
Actually, I like Americans
Okay.
because they are like very chilled. America is like so expensive for good food. Like
Yeah.
for like fruits and all this fresh stuff, it's like so expensive.
J'ai deux visions un peu.
Ok.
J'ai la version où ils sont trop cool et tout, et la version vraiment le beauf américain.
Do you think the stereotypes about Americans are true?
Kind of. I have a classmate that is American, and we are talking like about our traditional foods. And the American was like, my typical food is hamburger, ice cream, like the McDonald's one. And we are like, oh, so McDonald's is your typical food? She was like, yeah, kind of.
Could I just take a couple minutes, ask you a couple questions? It's okay if you don't have time, it's fine. Okay, all good. Have a nice day. The Americans don't have time for me. That's kind of fun.
They probably think you're trying to sell them something. You know, they're on vacation. As far as this fast food thing goes, let me look up something here. Okay, according to the mighty Google, last count there were 33,000 full-service restaurants in America. 33,000. So no, we don't all eat McDonald's every day. As a matter of fact, fast food-wise, I eat fast food once or twice a week. So, I mean, you know, I understand the image, but it's not realistic for everybody. And a lot of that has to do with your socioeconomic, you know, different classes that you're in. So, you know, a lot of poor people will eat fast food because it's generally cheaper. You know, or at least it used to be. It's actually quite expensive now, but you know, for quite a long time you could get 99-cent hamburgers. So if you had a family of 4, you could spend $10 or $12, you know, and feed a family and keep them full for, you know, 6-8 hours. Which is unfortunate. And they are right. It is more expensive for good food, for quality food. You know, organic lettuce and organic vegetables and fruits and stuff. Yeah, they can be expensive. But it's not insane expensive. It's just, it is cheaper to buy junk food than it is to buy quality food in America. That is true. And that is something that needs to change. You know, but, you know, it is also possible to eat high quality food. There's plenty of vegetarians in America. There's plenty of health nuts. You know, right down the street from me is a regular grocery store and a Whole Foods store, which is a, you know, store that sells, you know, the highest quality of food available in America. You know, as far as produce and that kind of thing.
Funny. Would you mind if I asked you a couple questions?
Yeah.
Polarized.
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 Yeah. More than the Netherlands.
Much more. Much more.
Feel younger people feel the same way or differently about American?
I think even stronger.
Even stronger?
I think they feel even stronger.
Yeah, the older people, I feel maybe thinking of the World War II and World War One, in which the Americans did a very good job by helping because Europe was not doing very well.
Yeah.
You think?
Ils connaissent que ce qui se passe dans leur pays.
Parce que enfermés sur eux-mêmes.
C'est-à-dire
que c'est pas contre eux, mais qu'ils s'intéressent pas trop aux autres pays.
They know about their own country, but not about like other.
It's a fair argument. But you have to remember, America has 50 states and 5 territories that are populated. That's 55 little countries. You know, we're not the size of Belgium or, you know, anywhere. I mean, Germany or Ireland or any of the countries you want to compare us to. It's not even close. You know, all of Europe is within 4% size-wise of America. And America is 25 to 30% of the entire world's economy, depending on the year. So, yeah, if you're dead center in the middle of America, you've got to travel 1,000 miles before you even get close to another country. I mean, it's not the same. It's not the same in any stretch. To drive from one side of America to another in an automobile will take you realistically 5 days. 5 days. And in Europe, you could probably travel from one country to another within 5 or 6 hours. So yeah, it's different. I mean, you look at states like California. I mean, you can drive from one end of California to the other end all day long and never leave the state. And there's 49 other states. So it's not, yes, we should learn more about the world, which is what I'm trying to do here. You know, my wife and I are going to be doing a lot more international traveling, and we are going to learn about the world. And I'm trying to learn before we go, and I'll learn while we go, and I'll learn after we go. And no, your average, you know, lower middle income or lower income family probably doesn't know much about the rest of the world, because there's so much diversity and so much to see in America that they never even leave the country. I mean, it literally is like 55 little countries. I'm not even kidding. You know, Florida is different than Georgia, and they're right next to each other. Louisiana is different than anywhere, you know, and they have states that border them. Texas is like its own country completely. So is California. New York City's like one of the biggest cities in the entire world, population-wise. It's nothing like Nebraska or Colorado or Montana or Oklahoma. So you could literally spend every year going to another state, if you're an American, for vacation. And for 50 years, you're going to get 50 different experiences. We have deserts. We have mountains. We have places that it rains all the time. We have places that it never rains. You know, the climates are different. The terrain is different. The population's different. The politics is different. The laws are different. You know, if you're up in the Northwest, you know, Washington State, Oregon, some of California, they have completely different drug laws. You know, or initiatives where they'll ignore certain drug usage. Some certain drugs are legal. Certain drugs are still illegal, but they don't arrest anybody for them. That's completely different than if you go to Texas or Florida or somewhere else. You know, some states, everyone has a gun. Some states, almost no one has a gun. These are all different because they're all run locally. Our Constitution says the states run their own states. The government protects, the federal government protects the entire country. So other than military, federal taxation, international trade, and interstate trade and transportation, the local states pretty much control everything. That's why they're so different. Because people in that area want certain things. People in New York are completely different than people in Texas. And there's nothing wrong with it, no matter which way you go. That's the beauty of the United States. We're united as a country, but, you know, how you live and where you live is completely different depending on location and leadership and everything else. So that's why. That's it in a nutshell. People don't need to fly to Europe to see beautiful forests, or fly to the Middle East to see beautiful deserts, or, you know, fly to Switzerland to see beautiful mountains. I mean, basically just about anything that you can want to see is available in America. I'm not saying it's as good. I'm not saying the French Alps are not as, that the Blue Ridge Mountains are better than the French Alps. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying for the average person, the price it costs for a flight, a hotel, and everything else, the comfort level, you know, I can go stay in a cabin on the side of a mountain in North Carolina or South Carolina for 20% as much as it would cost me to go out of the country somewhere. So that's part of it. And part of it is ignorance. And part of it is it's not really taught much in school. But I guarantee you that I could quiz a bunch of Europeans about America and they wouldn't know either. A lot of stuff about America. I mean, I know so because I've seen videos where the people are completely wrong. So I think it goes both ways. And maybe America's a little bit more ignorant about the rest of the world because we never have to depend on the rest of the world for anything. It's not brought up, If the British pound drops tomorrow 50%, it doesn't affect America at all. If the American dollar drops 50% tomorrow, it affects the whole world. And that sounds egotistical, and that sounds like a typical loudmouth, fat-ass American, but that's the truth. Just because you don't like the truth, doesn't mean that it's not the truth. And so, yeah, a lot of people are never going to learn anything about Europe. I'm trying to. Now, I learn something every single day, and I love it. And there's things that I hear that I don't like, and there's things I don't agree with, but there are some things that I've changed my mind on, quite frankly. So let's keep learning and keep an open mind.
Stuff in the world, they're overrated.
They're overrated? How?
No, she's a brilliant.
They receive too much attention?
Yes. Too much hype.
Too much hype.
On the internet.
Are you also German?
Yes, I am.
And in Germany, you feel like German people have a positive view of Americans? Or
not really?
No, okay, so more negative.
Yeah, I think so.
Do you feel that there's been a change at all?
I'm not here to bash Germany, but I think in the upper levels, a lot more Germans and Americans get along than they do in the lower levels, as far as the average person versus, corporate worlds.
Yes, especially due to the Trump and the Tea Party things happening. It got more polarized and that made it more negative in my view.
There's more that I'd like to say about why I believe this dynamic is happening, why Europeans see Americans in this way. Time for me to share some of my own personal theories here. Here's why I think it was maybe a little bit cooler to be American in the past. I was born in the 90s, maybe like some of you. And back in the 90s, it's not like the United States, or the world for that matter, didn't have its problems. It definitely did. You're not gonna get any of that classic, nostalgic, those were the days kind of thing from me. But one thing I think we can all agree on is that back in the 90s, the internet had not yet completely taken over our lives like it has now. And in my view, the internet feels like it's taken whatever problems already existed and made them bigger and louder. That might actually be what the internet is best at, the fast transmission of ideas and information, which in turn amplifies them. And there's another thing that the internet is really good at, which is that it is a canvas for less curated or filtered versions of that information or ideas. There are less gatekeepers, so anyone can say anything. My theory is that as time has gone on, and as the internet has played a bigger and bigger role in our lives, the world has been exposed to a less curated version of the United States. You had movies and TV and pop music reaching the entire world, but it wasn't like it is today with social media and even the news reaching so many more people. Nowadays, it feels like you cannot escape the news about the mass shootings that are constantly happening in the US or the insane election cycles. I think in some ways, the internet might have taken away some of our innocence, right? Some of our naivete. As a result, even more curated versions of culture, like the highly produced TV shows and movies, are reflecting the things that we're seeing. The unintelligent.
You can't compare every state in the country to Europeans. In other words, you can't group all of America together because it is so diverse. States are completely different. Their laws are made locally. There are states that have lower gun ownership than France, probably than England. Last time I looked, there were plenty of states that had lower gun ownership than countries in Europe. We don't have a gun problem. We do have a crime problem. But that crime problem is almost always in the largest cities. There are thousands of cities in America. If you were to take out the top 20 or 25 from the stats, our crime level would be at or below any country in Europe. You know, criminals are killing criminals, and those go on the stat sheets. You know, your average person doesn't just go to the grocery store and get robbed. That's not realistic. That's not the real world. I'm 53 years old. I'm 53 years old. I've never had my house broken into. I've never been held up. I've never been mugged. I've never been assaulted. I've never been arrested. I've never had any of the problems that people act like every American has to deal with on a daily basis. My wife's never been assaulted. My wife's never been arrested. My wife's never had her house broken into before she met me. We've never had a car stolen. We had one car broken into, and on average, we own more than 2 cars at a time. So since I was 16 years old, I've had an automobile, and I've had one of those automobiles broken into between the two of us. It's actually her car, so I've never had a car broken into. It's not that what you see is the media doing everything they can do to get as much views and as many clicks as possible, because it's become entertainment, not the news. News used to be the facts. Here they are. Make up your own mind. Now it's, here's what happened. Here's what we think about it. Here's how many times we're going to replay the same story over and over and over and over. And when we're wrong, you may get some kind of a retraction a month later, you know, in a little blurb that nobody pays attention to. You know, these mass shootings and all that stuff is just repeated over and over and over and over and over. You know, when you talk about a mass shooting now, they've changed the definition. So now a mass shooting is like if 2 or 3 people are shot. That's a mass shooting. Well, that could be in someone's house. That could be a disgruntled family member. You know, that could be all kinds of things. The fact of the matter is, it's not a gun problem. There is a crime problem, but it doesn't affect the average person. It affects criminals mostly. It's mostly one criminal shooting another criminal, quite honestly. And it's in the worst cities, and all of those cities are run by similar governments that were elected by the people of those cities, and have been like that for years and years and years. There are plenty of cities you can move to that have lower crime rates than anywhere in Europe.
So there's been a change.
I think it's always been like that. I think there's a change now because like social media is making it more apparent.
America used to be, you know, like the American dream, like a lot of them used to be a big thing. Like gun crime is getting like publicized a lot more. So I think like the narrative is changing a little bit.
Je vois l'Amérique comme une grande puissance mondiale et je les vois comme des capitalistes. En fait, si t'as de l'argent, tu vis bien, mais si t'as pas d'argent, y a personne pour t'aider. Marche ou crève.
In France, we say the Americans are big and fat, but I have America with the friends, the salary friends.
Donc il y a des côtés positifs et des côtés négatifs.
Ouais, c'est ça exactement. Globalement, les gens pensent ça, mais en même temps, tout le monde va à New York et tout le monde va aller aux États-Unis.
Ouais, d'accord, ok.
C'est ça en fait, ouais. Ils ont des préjugés, mais en même temps, c'est quand même un rêve d'y aller.
J'étais absolument ulcérée.
Okay, so as far as Americans being fat, yeah, we have an obesity problem. I'm fat. I mean, there's no question. But UK is gaining on us pretty quickly. And that's, you know, a lot of it has to do with capitalism, fast food, and freedom of choice. You know, a lot of people don't eat well because they have so many choices, and fast food's a real problem. There's no question. But you have to have the freedom to make up your own your own mind, your own decisions. You can't, you know, outlaw fast food because you don't like it. I mean, we have the freedom of choice, and there are plenty of healthy people in America. I would say, percentage-wise, there's as many healthy people in America as there is anywhere else. Look at smoking. You know, Europeans smoke like chimneys, apparently. That's what I've been told. It's what I just saw in another video, that it was cool to smoke in Europe. Well, it's not cool to smoke in America. So, you know, while you guys are eating McDonald's, you're sucking in 55 poisonous chemicals into your body through a cigarette. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. You know, so you can stereotype or generalize anything you want, but, you know, this whole thing with gun crime and all of that, the statistics are twisted depending on what your argument is. You know, most deaths by gun are either self-defense, criminal on criminal, or suicide. It's not, excuse me, it's not your average person going down to the grocery store and getting shot in the parking lot for no reason. It's just not reality. I mean, it's just not reality. I've owned a gun my entire life, at least one gun, my entire life, every year of my life as an adult. I've never shot anybody. I've never had a gun pointed at me. You know, it's not the Wild West here. So no matter how much people want to believe that's the case, it isn't the case. And perhaps, you know, I'll pull up some statistics to prove it. I'll give you one right off the bat that I know. You hear about the school shootings. Horrendous, horrible, absolutely disgusting. No justification ever for a school shooting for any reason. But people act like there's a school shooting every week. The people are being slaughtered all the time. In the last 25 years, let me repeat that. In the last 25 years, okay, less than 500 people have been killed in a school. Horrible, terrible. That's almost 500 too many. Almost 500, less than 500 have been killed in a school. That's adults, children, parents, teachers, everything by a gun, okay? Why would I bring that up? Because it sounds horrendous, and it is horrendous for anybody who to die like that. But if you look at the statistics, you're more likely to get killed driving to school than you are to be killed in a school. But you wouldn't know that from the news. So out of those 500 people, less than 500 people who passed from being shot, that was over a 25-year period, which averages 20 per year. Yeah, it's a horrible thing. But I can pull up stuff from other countries where people have walked into schools and stabbed kids, or walked into malls and stabbed kids, or walked around with a sword and cut people's heads off, or whatever. The gun debate isn't a debate. It's a right that was given to us by the Constitution when we, you know, became a country, when we told Britain that we're no longer under your rule. We overthrew a tyrannical government with guns, so founders said American people will always have guns so that they don't have to ever worry about being taken over by a tyrannical government. That's a fact. You don't have to like it. It is what it is. It's not a privilege. It's a right. Well, with that comes other problems. And let's get this straight. Law-abiding citizens aren't killing people illegally. They're not, I mean, the people who are committing crimes are criminals, period. They're not allowed to have guns. You're not allowed to have a gun in America if you've committed a felony, a serious crime. Yet 90% of all shootings are by criminals. And a good portion of those are shooting other criminals, you know, gang fights and wars and drug deals and whatever. So the average American is not worried about being shot on a daily basis, no matter what the media wants you to believe.
Serré quand Trump était au pouvoir, de voir le comportement de cet homme, ça donne pas envie d'aller forcément dans ces conditions-là. Le fait que les gens soient très très armés, j'ai l'impression que je me sentirais pas en sécurité.
Most people love Canadians.
Okay.
Right. You know, people talk about America and the gun problem and everything else. You're so afraid of guns. Well, let me show you some statistics here. Canada. Firearms per 100, 34.7. So 35 guns per 100 people. Finland, 32. Norway, 29. Switzerland, 28. New Zealand, 26. Sweden, 23. So France, 20. 19.6. Here's France. So people in France are talking about how scary America is with all their guns. Yet they average 20 guns per 100 people. Right here. 19.6. 12 million firearms in France. Number 26. Okay? You with me so far? Great. Remember that number, 20. 19.6. Basically 20 out of 100. 20%. Here is gun ownership by state in America. New Jersey, 1%. Washington, 1%. Utah, 3. Rhode Island, 4. New York, 5. Delaware, 6. Hawaii, 6. Massachusetts, 7. California, 11. Michigan, 11. Illinois, 11. Vermont, 15. Maine, 16. Wisconsin, 16. Iowa, 17. Ohio, 18. And Missouri, 18. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So there's 17 states. 17 states that have less than 20 guns per 100 in America. 17 states. Those 17 states combined are much larger than France. Not even close. France, 19.6. 17 states in America you could live, if you're so petrified of guns, that have a lower gun ownership rate than France. So population-wise, 17, 20, 21, 40, 41, 42, 49, 89, 99, 100, 99, 111, 112, 113, 118. So well over 100 million people live in those 17 states that have a lower gun rate than France. You got to get your emotions out of these things and look at the real world, look at the real stats. I mean, if you're so worried about guns, you probably should start talking. Talk to Canada, talk to Finland, talk to Iceland, Austria, Norway, Switzerland, New Zealand, Sweden, France, Germany, Luxembourg. I got states that are have less gun ownership than 177 countries in the world.
Yeah. Okay, so once you clarify you're a Canadian, they're
Yeah. They're like, oh, Canada, where are you from in Canada?
For me, it's like a lot about the money, like the times I went to New York and it's like, you know, winners and losers and, you know, you gotta make it and you gotta make loads of money and la 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 and then like if you don't have money you're like basically fucked. I would say extremes.
Extremes.
It's like an extreme, you know, country, like very very rich, very very poor.
Right.
Eat very much, eat very 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 healthy, like extreme healthy, extreme like XXXL and McDonald's, whatever.
Where are you from?
England.
Perfect. So I'm doing a video on Europeans' view of Americans.
Okay.
I don't know if you have any opinions about that. So, okay.
From Europe. No, we're not. We live.
Americans are stupid, right?
very, very poor.
Right.
Eat very much, eat very, very, very healthy, like
Yeah.
extreme healthy, extreme,
Yeah.
like XXXL and McDonald's,
Yeah.
whatever.
Where are you from?
England.
Perfect. So I'm doing a video on Europeans' view of Americans.
Okay.
I don't know if you have
We're
any
not
opinions about that.
European.
So, okay.
Europe. No, we're not. We left the EU.
No, this is in Europe.
Do you feel like it's a more positive or a negative view of Americans?
I'd say negative. I feel like there's a lot going on there that's just a bit backwards.
Yeah.
Like I feel like we need to move along.
Yeah.
The like all the abortion laws coming
Okay, so
in.
politically.
And, yeah, like all the gun crimes,
Yeah.
things like that. Like
I think I've already explained it, but I'll explain it again. Every state makes their own laws. It's not legal. In this country, some states abortion is legal, some states it's not legal, some states it's legal under certain circumstances. It all depends on the state and the state laws. Abortion was never addressed in the Constitution, therefore it doesn't run under federal law. States make their own laws. People that live in those states vote on the people they want to make their own laws. So, abortion is legal in some states, it's not legal in others. I'm not saying what side to be on. The fact of the matter is, states make their own laws. So, it's not illegal to get an abortion in every state, and it's not legal to have an abortion in every state. That's all done by your local leadership of that state. That's how we are the most diverse country in the world. You could have people with completely polar opposite views live in states right next to each other, and those states are run completely differently.
I imagine like most of the country is absolutely lovely, but there's some of the morals that are just a little bit off for me. So I struggle with that.
I agree, but I do think you all like proper chatty and that, and you're really energetic.
Yeah.
So it's a positive thing.
Yeah.
Oh, it's
But I
lovely
also
to
agree
meet
with that as well.
Yeah.
It's lovely to meet Americans.
Yeah.
Love meeting Americans.
Okay, so why am I so interested in this topic? Well, over the last few years, I have shared my journey moving abroad and looking for a home. Because that home is not the United States. I just don't feel connected to that country. Not as a home, even though I'm coming to realize that it did shape me in many ways. I'm just trying to find my place, but as I've said before, different people will treat you in different ways based off of how they perceive you. The first time I experienced this was during my high school exchange in France when I was 16 years old. Obama was president, and regardless of your personal political opinions or feelings, he was seen in a generally positive light abroad. So in a weird way, even though I was not responsible for electing him, I wasn't even of age to vote, that scored me some cool points. And then on top of it, 16-year-old French kids living in a small town in the west of France thought it was cool that I rode a yellow bus to school and that I had my own personal locker in the United States. So I was benefiting from all these things that I didn't really control at all. Then I get to Argentina a few years later, and I see what it's like to be on the flip side, where the general sentiment was more negative. I'm generalizing here, but there's a bit of an anti-American streak in Argentina. And I think this comes down to the image that the United States has of being a bit of a bully. I mean, Che Guevara is a bit of an anti-American, anti-capitalist symbol, right? So that was a very different experience, and now I'm back in Europe, and I've been here for a while, and the perception has changed yet again.
90% of the Dutchmen think Trump is quite strange.
Yeah.
They think Republicans are also quite strange, and that Americans are very Puritan.
This might just be me, but I do feel like the image of Americans
Makes perfect sense. It's the exact opposite of the Dutch. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. Trump is strange, but it doesn't mean he doesn't have good policies. And a lot of people don't really even understand how American government works. Presidents don't write laws. They don't just, jot something down on a piece of paper and it becomes the new law. They're not kings. And that's what Congress is for. So the fact of the matter is, you can like Trump or hate Trump. it doesn't have anything to do with anything other than that's the president of the United States and he can get us in a war, but he didn't. Unlike almost every other president we've had. You know, most people hate Trump because he put America first. He wanted America first. I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm just telling you the way it is. And of course, most Dutch people think Republicans are nuts. Because Republicans are all about taking care of their country, removing all the glass ceilings so that people, you know, can reach their maximum potential. Whereas these other, you know, a lot of other countries that work on have a little bit more of a glass ceiling and a little bit less of a ability to fail type approach. So there's not as much variation. You probably don't have a real good chance of being born poor in other countries and sending your kids to Ivy League schools before you die, and then having them be rich in other countries. In America, that's completely possible. You could be born completely dirt poor, move 100 miles away, start a business, put your kids through college, and one could be a doctor, one could be a lawyer, and everyone dies millionaires. That's completely possible in America. Not so likely in most other countries. I mean, I could sit here and talk for 4 hours about all the benefits that are available to people who have lower income, but I'll just summarize it. They have the ability to get free medical care. Yeah, I said it. Look it up. Free medical care, free medical insurance for their children. They can get vouchers for free food every month. They can get rent control programs so that they get lower price rent where they're staying. They can literally get paid to not work if there's any kind of a disability or anything else. Or they can get a subsidy if they are working and they don't make enough money, especially if they have children. That's a fact. And 40% of Americans don't pay any federal income tax. 40%. So this whole idea that if you lose your job and you have 3 kids, you're going to be living on the street, that's not reality. Does it happen? Sure. If you refuse to leave the most expensive city in the country, then you're going to have a hard time surviving if you don't have a good job. I can't buy a beach house in California, but I could buy a 7-bedroom house in Mississippi. You know, that's the difference. In America, a $100,000 house in one location is $1 million house in another location. Most of the homeless people are in big cities that cost a lot of money to live in, or they're big cities with very little job opportunities, and they just refuse to move. But any single mother with 3 children who's working at a fast food restaurant 40 hours a week, they're getting money from the government to subsidize their income. They're getting money for groceries. They're getting money for rent or a discount on rent. They're getting free or dramatically reduced health insurance. You know, health insurance could be $25 a month instead of $500 a month for someone else that was making, you know, middle class income or higher. And they're not paying any federal taxes. The kids are getting free education. They're getting free health care. They're getting free food at school. They'll get free lunch. Some schools have free breakfast and free lunch. Some schools even give you free lunches during the summer when they're not even at school. So it's not all about rich and poor. And yeah, there is no glass ceiling in America. There's I mean, you think Elon Musk, one of the smartest men in the world, just moved to America for no reason? He wasn't born in America. He chose America.
Has deteriorated a little bit over the last 10 years. That might come down to the government that's currently in power. It might come down to social media. This is a very complex thing, so I can't point to a single reason, but it's definitely a feeling that's there. Now, on a personal level, before I realized that this was going on, I was kind of unintentionally overcompensating. I felt like I needed to show that I wasn't the out-of-touch American in Europe. And the same thing happened to me in Argentina, where I was speaking with as much slang as I possibly could that I picked up over there, even when it was just way too much, when it was inappropriate. Que zarpado, boludo, está re piola, pibe, mal. Why was I acting like that? Was there a deeper need within me to be accepted by the people that I am surrounded by? To me, it's a little bit cringy to behave that way because it's over.
Yeah, it's real cringy. There's a few things in this video that are cringy. I hope you got it all worked out in your head, man.
Compensating for something, which in this case was the identity that people were associating with me. Whatever it was, the out of touch, stupid American, or whatever it might be. But that's actually a me problem, not a problem with the world. I've come to realize that people can think whatever they want about you. It doesn't change who you are. If people see me as yet another dumb American, it doesn't mean that's true. And also, it doesn't mean all Americans are that way. I think we all know this. We all know that individuals don't necessarily follow the stereotypes, but it's also how people operate in a world of 8 billion people. I can't blame people for having formulated an idea about the place that I'm from, considering how much culture is exported from that place. A part of me used to try to distance myself as much as possible from anything and everything American.
Sad.
But the truth is that
That's
at
sad.
least some part of me, some piece of me, has been influenced by my upbringing there.
How
There are a lot of
embarrassing.
things I don't like, but there are some things that I do. If genuinely being very enthusiastically excited about simple things is the dumb American thing to do, then fine, maybe I'm a dumb American sometimes, because that is something that comes naturally to me. I would rather be myself and accept the consequences than try to be someone that I'm not. And you know what? Everyone wants to feel welcome wherever they are, and especially in their home. But the reality is that that's actually a luxury, not a given. So many immigrants in the United States were never made to feel that way, despite the fact that the country benefited tremendously from all the immigration, all the people that risked their lives to go build something over there. Honestly, I don't have it that bad. Who am I kidding? I don't have it bad at all. It could be so much worse, and oftentimes it is. Exploring this topic has really given me quite a bit of empathy for the immigrants that are very poorly received all around the world. So, what do you think about everything I just shared here? What is your perception of Americans or of Europeans towards Americans? I would be curious to hear, because this is a giant open-ended topic, and I invite all different opinions and perspectives on this. It's just something I love to explore. Also, apologies to all Latin Americans and Canadians who are Americans in their own right. I have decided to use that word in this video because there isn't really another word that has been widely adopted to still speak of the people of the United States. So I just used it for simplicity, and I hope that you can forgive me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see all of you.
All right, so that's a good video. I mean, I knew I'd get a little fired up about it, but he's entitled to his opinion. Kind of makes me a little bit sad that he's trying to distance himself from America, but hey, that's his choice. He can do whatever he wants. You know, of course, there's things I don't agree with in this video, and it is what it is. I would be curious to know, though, I mean, not one person that he came across didn't have a problem with Americans, didn't think Americans were stupid, didn't think Americans were fat, didn't think, I mean, whatever. I guess it is what it is, but a lot of ignorant people. I mean, when you don't even know you're European, I really don't value your impression of America that you saw via sitcoms and internet postings. Call me crazy. It's a little sad, you know, that people feel that way. And some of it's our fault for, you know, the fact is we don't travel. You know, we don't have the opportunity to change people's minds. If you don't come to America and we don't go to Europe, how are you ever going to know any different? By what? Watching CNN news segment on Donald Trump? That's how you're going to judge America? Because a friend of yours went to New York City? That's how you're going to judge America? I mean, I can keep beating it till I'm red in the face. There's 55 states and territories in America, and they're all different. So, you know, it'd literally be like me judging Europe based on whatever happens in Austria. You know, it's a little tiny little segment of Europe, right? Isn't that the same thing? You're basing everything on Los Angeles and New York City. Maybe Miami occasionally, unless it's some gang shooting in Detroit or Chicago, which are all run by the same government, same ideology, which is low on crime, and we don't need to get into that. We don't need to get into politics. But so anyway, fact of the matter is I'm still interested seeing what else is out there. You know, hopefully other people are trying to learn as much as I'm trying to learn about other countries. Maybe their mind will change. Maybe if they spent a year here and lived in 3 or 4 dramatically different types of states. You know, I find it funny that when I watch videos on Europeans that move to America, I don't get a whole lot of negative from them. Now, maybe they're just pandering, you know, to the American audience. Or maybe it's better than people portray it to be. You know, just like I don't know a lot about Europe, a lot of Europeans don't know as much about America as they think they do. So hopefully that'll change in both cases. All right, it's your average middle-aged American trying to learn about the world, and I appreciate a thumbs up. You don't have to agree with me, but, you know, just try to make some valid points, and I'm sure I got a lot of editing to do, but anyway, check out some of my other videos. They're not all so depressing. We are looking forward to doing some international traveling, seeing the world, learning more about other cultures, and all of that is in my channel. Anything and everything that interests me as a middle-aged American male should be in my channel. So that's all I got for now, and I do appreciate you. You don't have to agree with me, and I don't have to agree with you. Let's have a civil conversation in the comments. You know? Put in here what you agree with, what you don't agree with. Let's have a talk. We don't need name calling. We don't need any of that nonsense. You know? Let's learn something. Anyway, I appreciate you, and here's a couple of the videos that might be a little more cheerful. All right, take care.